this is Bob Geller, your host. Welcome to PR Done and Dunner. It's that time of year, a great time for New Year's resolutions. And there's no better time for PR folks to resolve to do a better job delivering and proving their value. For that latter part, how do you prove PR value to the bottom line, or in the jargon, show attribution? We have an expert joining us. She is a real Renaissance woman, a noted speaker, author, and entrepreneur. I'd like to welcome Renée Warren of We Wild Women fame to the podcast. Hi, Renée. How are you?
Hey, Bob. Thanks so much for having me.
My pleasure. Glad you could join us. And we're here to talk about PR attribution, as I said at the outset. But first, it's always great for the audience to get a good understanding of who is on the show and who is Renée Warren. And it'd be great just to hear your background, the things you're involved with, and specifically also as it relates to PR measurement and attribution.
Well, I don't think my history and career is all about PR attribution.
I hope not. I wouldn't want to talk to you if that's what it was.
No. So my story is that I've been an entrepreneur for 20-something years. When I was 17 years old, my mom told me to go get a job. And I was like, get a job, but entrepreneurs make a lot of money and they don't work a lot. So let me just start a restaurant. And so it was something my sister and I did for 4 years seasonally. We ran this little restaurant off the shores of a lake in Northern Ontario, Canada.
Wow.
And we essentially paid our way through college with the money that we earned there.
It's impressive.
Like never a debt in my life.
What kind of food?
It was like a snack bar restaurant.
Okay.
But everything was from scratch, like hand dipped pogos, like handmade everything.
Wow.
And the food was really good.
I'm sure.
As far as like deep fried food goes, but no, it was a really well-oiled machine. And definitely something I would actually love to teach my kids how to do someday, because it's very lucrative. And then from there, I went to college, took business, traveled Australia, did that for a year, came back, and I was like, I've always had this dream of, get this, when I was 18 years old. My dream was, I thought I'd be married with 2 kids, a dog, and a white picket fence, running a top advertising agency in Manhattan.
Really?
By the time I was 30, that was my goal.
That was your ambition?
Yeah, but you know what? It's a great dream, but it wasn't the reality. I eventually achieved all those things in different kind of ways by the time I was probably like 38. But it was fun to dream. And I've always loved marketing. I've always loved PR, social media, inbound marketing, creating content. I'm an artist. So I ran an agency. So I've done communications agency. I started a social media agency and then sold that. And I always wanted to be in the creative space. And in 2013, I was 8 months pregnant with my first son, Max. And I was doing some contract work with a friend of mine. Her name's Heather. And I was doing social media inbound marketing when inbound marketing was like, content marketing was like the new thing that everybody's doing, infographics and SEO blogging. And she was doing PR for tech companies, and we came together to do projects together. And I remember we went out for lunch. She was having a glass of wine. I was having some water, 8 months pregnant. I was like, Heather, dude, we're doing some really great work together. Why don't we start a business? And she's like, you're going to have a baby soon. I don't think this makes any sense. And I was like, oh, babies, they sleep all the time. No worries. Little do we know, right? First kid. So learned a lesson. But over the course of 6-7 years, we grew it to be a very profitable company. And we worked with funded tech companies from South Africa to San Diego.
That's wild.
Won awards, just really loved it. And I think our approach to PR and where we were successful is just how upfront and honest we were when it came to PR measurement and setting clients' expectations. Yes, because you can't measure, you can't put all your eggs in one basket, in the sense of you can't measure the success of PR or PR campaign based on one thing that people think is the only thing you can measure. And that is if you get a placement as a feature, a guest on a podcast, morning television, TV, right? There's so many other things that go to create a PR, what I call a PR engine, to attribute the success of anything PR related to one outcome is extremely silly. And so for us in working with these tech companies, we'd onboard them and say, what's your goal? Like, what is it that you want to achieve? And of course, most of these companies their first announcement was like raising a round. So, hey, we raised a seed round or a Series A, whatever it is. So we did the funding announcements, which was relatively easy because there are some publications that pretty much just publish all of them.
Yeah.
Right? Like TechCrunch at the time was so easy to get on it. And then there was like, okay, but we signed these clients on for 6 to 12 months. And so it's like, what else do we have to do in order to leverage what we know can work for them, the talent that we have on our team, our expertise, to get them consistent traffic, right? Consistent people talking about their brand, thinking about their brand,
so
buying from them.
It wasn't just hits. It was results, business results.
It was doing work in-house that actually got what we call like movement. As in you're forcing somebody to make a decision to move, whether you're going to read the blog post or they're going to click on the thing. I mean, and we'll talk about all this attribution stuff, but when it came to reporting, they just wanted to know for us, how many pitches did you pitch and how many wins did we get? Right. So a win for us was like a yes or an actual like publication or radio interview, whatever it was. And over the course of since 2013, I would say my win rate is about 18%, right? Plus or minus margin of error of like 3% on either end. And so when I go to somebody and they're like, hey, I'm publishing this book, I want to get on 50 podcasts. Well, I know I have to pitch like 300 and something podcasts in order to get the 50. And it tends to work. It tends to work. Right. And then from that, as we know, there's other things that happen. There's other opportunities where they're like now co-hosting on shows and they're contributing content to other publications. But when it came down to their core goals for signing me on as somebody that helps them with PR, it was that attribution. It's like 50 podcasts. It was clear. And I was like, I don't guarantee anything. And by the way, the company, the PR person that guarantees wins should be slapped on the wrist. Yep. Because there's so much more that's involved. So anyways, all that to say, I was completely burnt out running that agency because it was 11 months after I had my first baby, started the agency. We welcomed our second son. We had 2 babies in the same year that I started the agency.
The numbers work against you quickly.
Well, that's it. We stopped at 2. Yeah. And now I'm back at it. It's been like realistically a few months, but it's like riding a bike and smarter, wiser. And I'm seeing the tools change. I'm seeing PR measurement and attribution change, what actually makes my job easier and selling it too, because now it's like people see there's more to it than just that one win. Right.
Well, I'm glad you appreciate it. And as you know, I found you through some very nice writing you did for the PRowly, I guess it's called blog.
It works.
And yeah, no, it makes sense. I mean, I think we know it. I mean, they say PR kind of delivers outsized results compared to other kinds of marketing vehicles. It's a good investment, but saying that and proving it are 2 different things. Mm-hmm. So, and we know PR people can sometimes shy away from things related to measuring, monitoring, I guess, attribution. And so, it's something I think we should not be afraid to tackle. I was thinking, by the way, of a bait and switch and calling this podcast Free Top Tier Media Opportunities, because when people hear attribution, I don't know. I'm not sure if that's something that would grab a lot of PR folks or if they necessarily understand it, but that's what this is about today. And that's what we're here to explain. So what do you think? I mean, do you think attitudes about measurement and attribution are changing? Do you think,
Oh yeah. And I think, the way that I see it is, I think that from my perspective is, especially like smaller agencies or solo publicists have more, I guess, clarity into the work that they're doing, but they're also not like, they're not the gatekeepers. So for instance, what our clients loved about us is our media list was called a media list. There's no fancy galley list name, whatever it was. It was a media list. And these are the people we've pitched when we pitch them, a timestamp, as well as a link to the actual draft pitch that we use to pitch. We pitched Bob January 5th at 1:16 p.m. And here's a link to the draft of the email pitch.
Okay.
And then we put into our calendar time as a reminder, follow up with Bob on this day. And oh, here's the draft follow-up email, by the way.
Me personally?
Yeah. So like, oh no, like we would draft the follow-up email to follow up with you, right? As an example.
I love it.
And so our clients, because here's what happens is nobody ever sticks with the PR agency forever or with we know this. I mean, and for us, it's like, we want our clients to succeed. And so they need to have access to kind of our model and how to do it. And guess what? They'll try for a week and they give up because they realize how much time goes into actually doing it well.
Is it proprietary technology? Is this commercial system?
No, it's literally a Google Doc, Google spreadsheet. And we've used the fancy stuff before and it's come down to, and we still use like some tools. But for the most part, it was that. And we were just so clear in terms of them having access to all of this stuff. They can go in and they can modify the draft pitch. They can modify the follow-up email saying, oh no, it was actually 2012 when we founded the company. So they have access to helping us with the content.
Wow.
So here's an example. My husband's book comes out in a couple weeks. And he worked through a publisher. I'm not going to say any names, but they have an in-house PR team that helps with all of these books being published. I'm like, oh, this is really cool. I love collaborating with a big corporate company just to see how they work. And I felt like their pitches were very corporate-y. That's even a word. It was very stuffy and
interesting.
It was like, okay, but they got some big wins. Do you know what their win rate was? 2.7%. 2.7%. When I said my average win rate was 18.
Now, we're counting wins as conversions from opening an email or to actually writing? Or
actually writing.
Yeah,
actually, so it was either getting the confirmation yes, which is for the most part, yes, the thing happens, or the actual mention, feature, interview, whatever it is that we were pitching about.
Interesting.
And I'm like, like it'd be interesting to get the data set around what their win rate was. Like I said, I called the win rate. And so, they pitched almost 300 contacts. I was like, So I looked at their pitch. I asked for a copy of their pitch. And I was like, it was at this point, it was a little bit too late to do any modifications. And I was like, hey, I don't get it. If this is what they're doing for all of these really famous authors, then it's got to work. And like,
you would think,
but it's not.
Well, maybe part of it is also relying on the author's name. If it's a famous author, you don't have to be creative. You don't have to necessarily.
No, here's where a lot of these publicists fail. It's the failure is in putting all faith into them knowing these people, knowing their contacts, being, oh, Bob's a friend. So like they get lazy. Right. But then all of a sudden now Bob becomes so popular as a journalist that he gets 100 pitches a day. And now just because you're friends, your stuff still doesn't get to the top.
Interesting. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Let's back up a little bit because we're getting deep into it already. But I mean, maybe we should start out with basics. Define attribution. How is attribution different than measurement? Before you answer, I mean, I think if not everyone in our field, and let's face it, not most even do a good job of measuring, even fewer do attribution.
Yeah.
At all, even well. I mean, so let's define some terms.
Yeah. So attribution is a measurement of actions that a user takes.
Okay.
Right. So for us, like attribution is, let's say we do like contributed content for a client. So we always want to have some sort of movement when we're working with clients, right? So the ebbs and flows of PR is like, sometimes there's just no news to share. And if we're on retainer, it's like, we got to figure something out. And this is where content marketing actually is a great bridge in between those moments and during actual pitching. And so attribution could be like so contributed content is where the link to the company's website is actually linked properly through from the contributed Forbes article, right? Because we know how like SEO and Google works is every time a really valuable website links to your website, it increases your Google juice.
Of course,
Right?
yeah. But is it also about, I'm sorry, you're saying?
So that would be an example of attribution.
But doesn't attribution also relate to the contribution to the sales?
Yeah, it can be. But here's the thing is, if you're working with somebody who doesn't really understand attribution, like maybe some of your clients, because they think advertising, a good example, right? It costs $1.50 to click through and then they become $1,000 client. Well, I mean, that's pretty good numbers. That's a good data point, right? But attribution could be like downloading a piece of content. It could be signing up for a free trial, or it could be making a purchase.
So anything relating to an action that a user takes or a reader takes to show that they've actually engaged and they're maybe.
I believe so.
Yeah.
And here's why. There could be now, there's a lot of technology that allows you to know if somebody downloaded a free trial or downloaded a piece of content that they eventually become a customer. Like HubSpot will even tell you, oh, they found you on Forbes, they came in and then blah, 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 and they download a piece of content. So that contributed piece to Forbes is like that new customer can be attributed to that contributed piece, right? But now, you have to define what attribution is. That's the thing.
My next question, are there different kinds of attribution?
Totally. There's a ton. There's so many. I actually made a list because I wanted to make sure that I was on point with this.
We'd love to hear about that.
Clicks, first touch, last touch, multi-channel, social media, right? Let's see what else. An attribution could be a lifetime value of a customer. We talk about that in PR. Right?
Well, it's a beautiful thing if we could show that. I mean,
right. So LTV, what's the lifetime value of a customer? All of a sudden, that Forbes article that you contributed now is generating so much traffic to your website, and you've done such a good job on your website to converting those people to a free trial that eventually goes to your sales team and they get on these sales calls, and the lifetime value of a customer is $20,000, and you get 10 of those. Right. So now you can attribute that revenue to that one Forbes article.
This is proving value, tying it directly back to your investment in PR. And then what the heck, maybe justifying further investment, if not continued.
100%. Like, who wouldn't then contribute to Business Insider or Entrepreneur or wherever they can actually get their name into? It's becoming increasingly harder to do that.
Now, I would imagine, that's true. I would imagine, though, depending on how we define PR, that, for example, if you throw in content marketing and digital, it becomes a little easier to connect those dots rather than relying on the hope that some earned media article will include a backlink, which it doesn't always do, right?
No,
Would you? So, I mean, that actually has made the job a bit more challenging. I mean, in your article, you talked about links in press releases. So, of course, you can control links in press releases. But you can't really control that when it goes into an article. So I guess, has it become more challenging, do you think, given that many publications are not including backlinks, or that there may be a challenge in Google tracking certain kinds of information because of privacy laws? Does it become more of a challenge to track attribution?
Yeah, I mean, yes, 100%. And that's why you have to use software, free or paid for, that allows you to track words. Right. The first thing I do, which is the first thing that I'm hoping all people in the PR world do when working with the client, is you get their keyword list and you create Google alerts for every single one of their keywords. Yes, your inbox gets loaded, but let me tell you, there's ways of creating folders in Gmail that allows you to store those things so it doesn't flood your inbox. And why? Because you want to know when your client's mentioned. You want to know when there's an opportunity to use that keyword that came up in the news, or to get an eye of what the competitor is doing. But it also allows you to use that as a form of measurement. Because if you're only tracking links back to your website and they forget to link you in an article, but you've missed the keywords, you've missed the mention of your company's name, now all of a sudden you can't attribute anything. However, just because there was no link back doesn't mean there's people then going and saying, oh, Renee Warren was mentioned in this article. Let's go find her website and email her and ask her to be on our podcast.
Now that makes a lot of sense. So
but how do you track that, right?
What's that?
How do you track that?
Good question. How do you that?
Right?
how do you track that? I mean, we talk about, well, keywords, I think of topics. You're aligning with topics that hopefully your clients are searching for or of interest to your clients. And if you're doing, I mean, there's a variety of tools. We use a number of tools. Think of, instead of share of voice, share of conversation around certain topics, tracking that, and then seeing who's covering it and then going after them.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
And here's the way that I see PR. I mean, it's building relationships with the public. But really, what you're trying to do is establish credibility and authority, especially in your industry.
100%.
So you could think, if you like took 2 seconds or 2 minutes and you, after this conversation, is you make 2 columns: authority, credibility. What are all the things you can do to create authority or credibility in your space, in your industry? And what are the affinity industries? As in, like, what are the complementary industries, and what are the things you can do there too?
Love it. No, that's great. It seems to me, though, there must be, well, I guess what we're getting to is maybe practical tips. I mean, how does, first of all, our clients, I'm talking about Fusion PR, and this is a podcast from Fusion PR. We also focus on the tech sector. Our clients are often startups. They don't have vast budgets for enterprise caliber kind of MarTech and PR tech. We do budget for some technology, but I mean, do you need a lot of technology? I don't think you can do it all with spreadsheets, can you?
Yeah, you can do a lot with spreadsheets.
That's great.
Well, for instance, PRowly, where you found us, to give them a quick plug, PRowly.com. First of all, they have great content. They're a platform that works with publicists. Let's see what their positioning statement is here. Media relations made simple. Finding relevant media context to send eye-catching press releases to blah, blah, blah. I think it tracks like open rates, if they open the email, all that stuff, which to me, it's like, I don't know, maybe I can ask you the question about this in a moment. But there's so many affordable software out there. Just Reach Out is another one that's similar to PRowly. It's not as expensive. I've used and I love. Obviously, there's like Google Alerts. There's following hashtags on social media. I mean, these are like the free, cheap versions. And you can actually get by in stitching all of this stuff together. Because there's some forms of measurement too. And I would absolutely love your insight on this as well.
Sure.
That I find very redundant or irrelevant. Because here's the thing about measurement is you pump out these reports and this data and you're like, present the data. Here you go. Now people look at it and they're like, now what? What am I supposed to do with this? Right?
Exactly.
So yeah. So then for me, it's like, what is the most important piece of data that I need to look at to make sure that I'm doing everything that's expected of my client, but what I know they need, what do my clients need to see?
A lot of this gets to KPIs. I mean, we agree at the start of a program or often update it. How are we measuring ourselves? And so we do have some measurements in place, and those are the things you look at typically. Are they the right numbers? I mean, that's something that you can probably debate, but certainly it's important to have those yardsticks in place.
But there's definitely software out there that does a lot, and it's great. But here's the thing is clients can't afford $1,500 a month for software. Most.
No, we don't bill it back to client. I don't know if you guys, we don't bill it back to clients. So.
Oh, exactly. And you hope to have enough clients that the accumulation of these clients can help you pay for the information. But no, there's ways around it. Right? Like social mentions, brand 24 is one that's affordable too. I think it's like $140 a month, where essentially it helps you track mostly social mentions of a company name or any name of it.
Right. I don't think it's any one tool. I think it's the closed loop approach where, first of all, you need a good mastery of Google Analytics or some other metrics platform, and to see really what is the impact on inbound, what drove the person there, did it result in any kind of thing you can call a conversion, whether it's a micro conversion. I mean, it doesn't have to involve more than one tool. It really has to be a whole approach to.
Exactly. It's multiple tools.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm not necessarily easy, but it's certainly worth the effort. And, would you agree that even the small company can at least get started and then?
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing is there's so many free tools out there. And if for me, an affordable tool is less than $200 a month, as long as you don't have 18 of them. And you don't need to have every single person on your team using these tools. Quite frankly, you should have one person who understands numbers, who understands Google Analytics, that's creating these reports for you. Again,
Oh,
it's like if you're the artist in terms of crafting the pitch, doing the pitch, you have your contacts, you're doing the outreach, that's your zone of genius. You're wasting your time trying to create these reports if you don't even know how to read them. How can you present on something you don't understand?
well, I think it involves, a commitment to understanding it, rolling up your sleeves. If you don't have that skill set, hopefully somebody on your team does, or you can hire somebody. But your commitment to really, first of all, appreciating the importance of it, and then making it happen. And I'd imagine, the first time you try it, it might not be perfect. Maybe it's more of a back of the envelope calculation, but as you implement more systems and improve the process, you'll only get better at attribution.
Exactly.
Make sense?
100%.
I have a couple of other questions. I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to share specifically on the topic of, I know one of the questions. How does attribution compare to measurement? How is that different?
Right. So attribution is, from my perspective, is when you identify a thing that is considered like a positive input, or a positive input for your campaign. So it could be the click on a contributed piece. It could be cooking on their website, right? So somebody comes to your website, now all of a sudden they've cookied. So whatever you define as like a positive input. Measurement is like measurement for the sake of measuring. It's like, if you're going to go measure this door just to know how big it is, what are you going to do with that information? Well, nothing, because I'm not replacing the door. So why am I measuring? So you can measure whatever you want. It's how you interpret the data that's important.
So it's not either or. I mean, does measurement work with attribution, or is it 2
100%.
different?
I think something gets smarter over time, right? Like my win rate. I wouldn't know that my win rate was 18% if I hadn't been doing this forever. I worked with 2 clients in my life and I said, oh yeah, I have a 60% win rate. Well, I'm like, those are decent odds, but I guarantee you the more people I work with, the lower that's going to become.
Yeah.
And so it's something that gets smarter over time. And a perfect example is if you're measuring, for instance, how much traffic you get based on your contributed content and based on certain publications, you say, oh, wow, okay, I've been contributing all of these pieces to these publications, but really only Forbes and Insider are the one that actually have anything relevant. Then over time, those are the only things you need to focus on.
And how do you track? I know you mentioned in your article something about UTM, like links that you put in your releases, or I guess PR content generally.
Yeah, UTM, you can create that for free. Essentially, it's just like almost like a line of code, if you want to explain it, that goes to websites. If you click on, for instance, if you click on a blog post and they say, we may make money because they're affiliates. We may make money if you buy something from this website. Well, look at where the URL is, and then click on the button, right? And all of a sudden the URL is going to do all these funky things and different letters and numbers are going to show up. You'll see UTM, and then it might direct you to a new page. Essentially what happens is now going to that page now knows that you came from that other page. If you didn't do that, you wouldn't know.
That is attribution. You're attributing that visitor to that link, to that piece of content, to that PR activity.
Yeah.
So that's,
it's huge in advertising, but let me tell you, public relations to me is the queen of all marketing. Everything else comes below it. It's marketing, advertising, branding, all that stuff to me comes below PR. PR is like the queen of it all.
And it's good to be queen.
Just please let me adjust my crown.
So I wanted to ask you if there's anything else you'd like to share with our audience, things you're involved with. I know you have a podcast. We Wild Women. Go ahead.
I want to share a case study that I love talking about. This one case study. Okay,
please.
We only ever had one corporate client the whole time I had my PR agency. And
as opposed to what, celebrities, as opposed to
it's startups, tech startups. Okay. Yeah, so we had one corporate client. They were called Renters Warehouse, which was America's second largest property management company. And I haven't checked in a while. I don't know where they are. But in the time, we were hired to help obviously get the word out about the company, but really position the founder as a credible authority in the space, because part of what we were tasked to do was to essentially help him sell his company. And so this is when we started doing traditional PR, creating press releases and pitches based on really cool things that were happening in the organization. But one of the angles that we landed on, so this guy named Brendan, 27 years old, essentially.
Is this the CEO or who is Brendan?
He was the CEO founder of the company.
Got it.
Oh, he didn't found the company. I think he bought the company. I can't even remember the story because this was years ago.
Impressive
anyway,
for 27 years old. I mean, that's okay.
Right, exactly. So our angle was how to retire at 27.
I love it.
People they're like, well, I want to retire at 27. What is this? Tell me about it. And that's what we used to pitch everything. And it took us, we worked with them for the better part of like 5 years. We helped them with social media. We helped them with content. So content marketing. So all of this so that the messaging, the positioning was all consistent across all of these channels, because that's where people go wrong, right? It's not consistent. So we made sure the branding, the messaging, everything was consistent. We wrote an article a week for him, whether it was, the way it worked is we would contribute it on Entrepreneur, Forbes, Business Insider, whoever didn't pick up the article, we would put on his LinkedIn page. So he was getting traffic everywhere and like just boosting him.
Nice.
Luck and timing is PR, right? That's PR, luck and timing. So
also some hard work and creativity too.
Well, yeah, exactly. With all this, though, we were creating this traffic, this buzz, increasing the Google juice on his website. We got one article that was picked up by Yahoo Finance that just went crazy. Wow. And then Fox News picked it up and that went crazy. Broke their website.
What was the secret behind it? Was it like a great, I don't know, was it big news? Was it just a creative angle or what was it?
Timing, luck, the angle, retiring at 27.
Nice.
It was like, I can't remember the exact headline was, but it was like what people wanted at that moment. Okay. Then all of a sudden that was like the big hook. We're like, holy crap, we're getting all of this. We estimate that they garnered $450,000 in the 48 hours that article was just going crazy.
As far as business goes?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's attribution.
And we're like, where's the money? We want that money too. Then we use that as the huge anchor to pitch the Steve Harvey show, of which he got a full feature on the Steve Harvey show.
Wow.
He was a guest on the show.
So was there eventually an exit? Was he able to sell?
Yeah, I think he ended up selling the majority of the company. He still had some ownership in it. I don't know if he completed that sale, but yeah, he eventually was just like, he's done. They brought in another CEO and was running the company and he was kind of out. But why I love this example, and I have many others, is that we know the attribution of revenue to that article. And it was like one article.
But how do you know there wasn't other marketing or advertising working alongside that?
They didn't do any online advertising. And we worked with their company closely with the marketing team.
Okay.
But Google Analytics, everything was saying that. But it's a great question because everything else helped.
Sure.
Right. If you had like Jane Doe or John Smith, who's never accomplished anything in their life or never talked about what they've accomplished, and all of a sudden there's an article about retiring at 27, people will be like, I don't know, who's this guy, right? Who is this girl? But because we had created so much momentum in terms of the content we've created, the pitching, all this stuff over the course of years, this just was an easy thing that just blew up.
No, that sounds like an extremely successful program and a great example. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. So what do I want to leave with the audience?
Yeah, please. I mean, well, first of all, you haven't really told us you have a great sign behind you.
Thank you.
I love it. The neon, We Wild Women.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting name. What is that, your agency or what is?
Yeah. So it stands for we being a collective, wild being unapologetically ourselves, and women being as what we identify as.
It's not the typical PR agency name. I mean, I really
because it didn't start. It started as a coaching business, and I wanted something that was a little bit different.
That's great. So you're happy with where you are, and you're hopefully growing it, and
I love it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I published a book too called Get Covered: How to Craft, Pitch, and Tell Your Startup Story to Get More Customers. I still contribute content. I find that being in PR, you're an artist. Identify as an artist. If you've ever done the book, The Artist's Way, Julia Cameron.
Yes, I'm familiar with that.
Incredible exercise. Everybody should do it.
No.
Yeah.
That sounds great. That's a good reference.
Yeah. And I work with female-led businesses. that need to create a bigger impact. You want more amplification for their brand, for their voice.
And what's the name of your podcast?
Into the Wild.
Check that out as well. So
yeah.
First, I want to thank you for coming on our podcast and sharing your insight. And I'll tell the audience that we'll leave links in the description to the article I read, because it has more information about attribution, and to your podcast and how to find Renee. And thank you for coming on PR Done and Dunner. Great speaking with you.
Thanks, Bob. It was so much fun. And I love the name of your show. It's awesome.